What's going on, everybody? Welcome to PFF's live NFL preview show here at the beautiful Western and Southern studio. So glad that you guys are here hanging out with us as we get you ready for Week 17 in the NFL. 2 weeks left. Pedal to the metal. All gas, no brakes. We've got more game previews, more best bets than we've ever had in a single show. We're also going to recap everything that we're seeing with the playoff picture, the number one overall seeds of both conference, what teams are going to be making it in at the end, all kinds of stuff. Jam-packed show for you guys. Of course, we've got Darius Butler hanging out with us at the end of the show as well. Fellas, how was your New Year's? We got any great New Year's resolutions? In my best, like Bill Belichick media question, do we have any New Year's resolutions?
Got a good one. I want to prove that I'm the fastest PFF employee in a 100-yard race.
Wow. That's your New Year's?
That's it.
Okay, who's his biggest competition? Renner?
No.
100-yard race?
Renner? Did you not see the video of Renner running?
Yeah,
no.
look. Renner was dumb because he said he could run like a 4.4 or whatever it was. But he's still fast.
I mean, look, if Renner is the competition, then he's got a good shot of winning.
Okay, all right, 100-yard dash, is that what it is?
What do you think he could run? Like 13 flat?
Maybe.
All right,
I haven't thought this through.
Eric, you got any New Year's resolutions?
My New Year's resolution is to, I'm trying to think of better jokes.
Better jokes?
Better jokes, yeah.
As the person who has to hear a lot of those, being directly next to you, that would be great. I'd love it.
I think it would help our friendship.
If you could work on that, that would be great. Sam, any?
What was it Bill Belichick said? And if I did, they'd be a private matter.
Yes.
I'll thank you to stay out of my business.
Okay. Well, okay then. We're going to have a lot of fun on this show, as you guys can see, covering a lot of the NFL. Let's start with the AFC, though. Let's talk about the playoff picture. Let's update the standings as we do every single week. We get the Kansas City Chiefs still at number one in the conference. Tennessee Titans hanging around at number two. Incredible job by Mike Vrabel keeping that beat-up Titans team right there in the hunt. I know we're going to get to some first-seed implications here with Eric in a sec, but we've got the Bengals sitting there, Bills sitting there, and then the three teams that we have so far in the playoff picture at the bottom. Colts, Patriots, Dolphins. That's what it stands at today. Fellas, what do we think about that matchup right there?
Look at that. Miami jumps in there.
I know. 1-7, now 8-7.
The Miami Waddles.
That's pretty much what they're going.
I think this is why some of the, like, when you look at the graphics of who's in, who's out, right? It's really important to have the probabilities, right? Because with the Dolphins, they're there, right? And if they win out, they're in. It was the same thing last year, though. If they won out, they remember that quagmire of, like, if everybody would have won Week 17 last year, the 11-5 Colts would have been out. But then Miami gets, like, trained by Buffalo.
It wasn't great.
In Week 17.
It was not great.
We all thought, like, Bitcoin Barkley was going to start, and then Josh Allen starts. Throws for, like, 404 or whatever. And, like, the thing is, the Dolphins here, they have a tough game as 3-point underdogs this week against Tennessee, and then they host a New England team next week. Basically have to win out in those games. And they got teams, we talk about this with Darius, they got the Raiders, who have somewhat of a more manageable slate coming up, as well as obviously the Chargers and teams like that are right nipping at their heels. So the Dolphins, obviously, could win out and make the playoffs, but their stay here at seed 7 might be a little bit short-lived.
Well, there's a handful of teams that are still in the hunt. I don't know how much they really are in the hunt. I guess to make the playoffs is one thing, to compete is another. But we got the Chargers, the Raiders, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Browns, and the Broncos all right there, right? We've got three teams that are tied with Miami record-wise, and then three other teams that are either a half game or one game back from that. Who has the best shot? Who has the best shot here with 2 weeks left to sneak into the playoffs?
Yeah, there's a path here. It's interesting. So the Browns, they're at 7-8, actually have like almost no chance of getting a wild card. Like basically their playoff winning chances are scorned lover over there. Their chances are almost entirely to win this AFC North, and we wrote an article on PFF.com if you want to check that out this week. It's basically coming down to all the favorites this week winning, right? So Kansas City beating Cincinnati, and then LA beating Baltimore, and then Cleveland themselves taking care of business Monday night against Pittsburgh. If that happens, the AFC North is determined next week by Cincinnati at Cleveland.
Which is hilarious.
Which is hilarious. I mean, the last time the Cleveland Browns won a division, it was not even the AFC North. It was called the AFC Central, and that was in 1989. Since 1989, the Jaguars were added to that division. The Browns left the league and became the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
The Browns were added back to the league. Mm-hmm. And then it was called the AFC North. That's how, and that was 20 years ago that it became the AFC North. It's been forever since the Browns have done it, but they have a relatively straightforward path to winning this division.
Like, even regardless of how long ago it was, the Browns are currently last in the division with 2 weeks to go, and their best shot of making the playoffs is winning the division.
All four of those teams, by the way, including Ravens, who just got swept by the Bengals, including Pittsburgh, who was swept by the Bengals, and they have a win over the Browns. Every single team in that division has a chance to win it with 2 weeks left.
And I think every team, with the exception of the Steelers, maybe, I think we've kind of known who they were throughout the year. We all believed they could be that champion at different points of the year. Cleveland really came out looking hot. Cincy, Baltimore kind of going back and forth. I just hope that Joe Burrow and company, now that they've gone hot, we've had a good couple week stretch, let's keep it going. Let's go in the playoffs, because, again, if we have to freaking watch Browns-Bengals inside this division in Week 18, a little bit frustrating.
I mean, NBC might like it, though. having the game on Sunday Night Football would be probably.
I want some vintage AFC Central merch. That's
Houston Oilers.
That's what I would. But not just
starter
Houston,
jackets.
Just it's the whole division. You know what I'm saying? Like with all the teams,
that's
like
the part
a shirt
I forgot.
or something.
That's another part of that division. Houston became the Tennessee Oilers and then became the Tennessee Titans also during that time. It's a story division that the Browns have somehow not won in God knows how long.
Let's move on to the NFC now. Storylines. Eagles, winners of 5 of their last 6. We've got the Cardinals dropping like a rock, man. It is not looking good for the Arizona Cardinals right now. They are on the opposite side of what you would want for momentum going into January. Packers, they have that 1 seed right now. Cowboys at number 2, Buccaneers at number 3, Rams now at number 4, Cardinals no longer at the top of that division. They're at number 5. And we've got the Niners at 6 with an interesting quarterback situation. And then, of course, like I said, the Eagles on winning 5 out of their last 6, now getting into that 7th spot as it stands today. What do you guys think about that playoff picture for the NFC?
Well, look, like any good cruise, it was COVID that finally took it out. And now Philadelphia.
For Washington, you're saying.
Jump
for
into
your
Washington spot and have that shot at the playoffs.
Wow.
Yeah, Washington playing spoiler, too, this week at home against the Eagles, because there are 3 teams nipping at their butt. But the biggest thing for me from a playoff perspective, both 1 seeds can be achieved, right? We'll talk about the Chiefs when we get to that game preview. But for the Packers, it's Arizona going on the road and beating Dallas, and then beating a banged-up Vikings team, particularly without their quarterback. That gets the Packers the 1 seed for the second time in as many years, and a bye for the 3rd straight year under Matt LaFleur. That to me, I think, is a storyline this week. The Bucks and Rams don't have the tiebreakers necessarily to sort of get up there. Mm-hmm. Dallas is the one team in the NFC that if things were to falter for the Green Bay, they're the one team that can get that 1 seed and sort of play it out. With that privilege.
Who is the team to you in the NFC to whom the number 1 seed and the home field advantage means the most? Is it Green Bay? Because Dallas has some pretty stark home and road splits this year. Arizona, I think, more for not having to go to Green Bay than for their own building, it feels like it would mean a lot as well.
The 1 seed helps fragile teams more than anti-fragile teams, right? And I think the better your quarterback, the more not fragile you are. Among the teams that have competition, I think it would help the Rams the most, right? Because the idea is hey, not only can Stafford not win in Lambeau, but can he win 4 straight games? If you're the Rams and you're all in, we forget about the Teddy KGB pushing the chips in the middle. We forget that with the Rams lost 3 games in a row after that tweet. But they're supposedly all in. And to me, the ones who would matter to them the most, they're not going to get it, but they would matter to them the most because essentially, Stafford winning 3 games to me is a much, obviously, better proposition than him winning 4. I'm fine. Dallas has a great quarterback and a good defense. I can see them winning 4. Green Bay, same thing. Great quarterbacks travel. And then obviously Tampa Bay, we saw last season, won 4 straight and are kind of basically the same team minus a few players. So to me, I think it's the Rams that need it the most, and they're not going to get it, which sort of tells you all you need to know about them.
Yeah. I do wonder if these teams at the bottom, the 49ers and the Eagles, because we've talked about in the AFC, the Titans, the Colts, these big power running teams that we know, on any given Sunday can get the win. But can they get the win on 4 straight any given Sundays? Because, the Packers, Cowboys, Buccaneers, I think we all agree these teams are kind of in a different class. But with what the Eagles have been doing with, we saw Kyle Shanahan drag, I think, a better, more complete version of this 49ers team a couple years ago. But, man, just looking at the kind of bottom of the barrel of the AFC versus the NFC, again, not putting my neck out there saying that the Eagles are going to make this big playoff run, but that is a team that's going to be difficult for any of the Packers, Cowboys, Rams, the elites of the elites to get done with.
We just saw last Saturday the Packers really struggled against a team that was very limited at the quarterback position, but very good running the football and very good at the line of scrimmage in the Browns. And I agree with you. I think some of these lower seeded teams in both conferences can really give these well quarterbacked teams some fits. Probably can't win the whole thing through, but can sort of take the legs out of the elite teams. And that's why when you're trying to handicap who's going to win both of these conferences, I think you have to have at least 2 teams in your list, because there's always a chance a team like the Packers or the Chiefs gets beaten up by one of these more physical teams.
So this brings up a good transition of how I wanted to talk about some of the contenders in the NFL right now. We've done the contenders and pretenders segment where we've kind of thrown out some teams where we go okay, are they for real or are they not? But now I want to take it to another level. Let's put these teams in tiers, and we're changing the screen on you there. We're going contenders and pretenders, but it's tiers style here. So we've got Super Bowl contenders, teams that we honestly think can win a Super Bowl. Like Eric mentioned there, win those 3 games in a row, 4 games in a row. We've got the playoff teams and then pretenders and then obviously the basement. So as much as you want to kind of save the best for last, we can't go bottom up. We've got to go top down here. So let's just throw out teams that we believe can be Super Bowl teams this year. What do we think? Where do we start?
Well, I think you have to start with the Green Bay Packers, right? I think that they're going to be the 1 seed in the NFC.
Okay.
With not all that much help. They just win out. They have Detroit next week, and I know Dan Campbell's going to have that team playing hard. But worst case scenario, they get no help, and they have to win out to do this. Minnesota Vikings with Sean Mannion, Detroit Lions with some combination of Tim Boyle and Jared Goff. To me, they're the 1 seed in the NFC, and I think that they should be team number 1 there.
Get the Chiefs and Buccaneers in there too.
Okay, all right, okay. Any objection? I don't think there's any objection there. We've got Packers,
this is
Chiefs,
where it gets more interesting.
Buccaneers. I think those are the 3 that are the most obvious. Are we putting any other teams up there?
Yeah, I'm going to put 2. I want 2 more teams up there at least, and I would even entertain Tennessee, but I think Buffalo with Josh Allen as the quarterback.
Okay.
I think you have to consider him, especially now that it looks like they're going to win that division. They're going to get at least 1 home game in the playoffs. I think you have to put Buffalo there. I also think you have to put Dallas there. I think Dallas, good head coach.
Yes, we're going. So then are we going Buffalo and Dallas? Do you guys agree with this? Yes or no?
I think they can
Sam?
both be in there, but I think if you're elevating Buffalo and Dallas, you probably have to put the Rams in there.
That's what I was going to say. That's
where I just don't think that. I think the Rams. Yeah.
So it sounds like all of us agree Buffalo is a Super Bowl contender. We could put them up there. Dallas is also a potential Super Bowl contender. We could put them up there. But if we're split on the Rams, and I think that we're split on the Rams, so I don't think that we can actually put the Rams up there. It feels like the Rams have to be where we're starting the next playoff tier. So let's go with the Rams there. You guys maybe have a little bit more faith in the Rams than Eric seems to, but if we're split, I feel like then that's where we got to start here. So other teams that are playoff teams, I think, okay, let's just roll them out. Titans, yes or no?
The Titans have a clear path win in their end.
Yep, okay. Cincinnati Bengals, what do you think about the Bengals? Playoff team?
Joey B stays hot?
Well, I mean, here's the thing.
I would say yes.
The Bengals just have to win one of their next 2 games to win the division.
Right.
So they're I think, the chance of them, let's assume there are a coin flip in both games. The probability that they lose both games is 1 in 4. So they're 75% basically to make the playoffs.
Sam,
so
what do you
put them
think?
up there.
Yeah, the Bengals.
Okay, so Bengals should be in there. Cardinals, for as much as they're reeling, are they?
They're in the playoffs.
Okay, they're getting in there. We're putting the Cardinals in there. Colts.
Yeah, the Colts are in the playoffs.
Okay, Colts are a playoff team.
Especially with they got COVID Wentz coming back this week.
Browns.
No. Patriots though.
Patriots are in.
Okay, Patriots. All right, we'll put the Patriots in. I saw the Browns there.
I think the last one you got to put in there then is San Francisco.
Oh, yeah, over the Chargers and over the Miami Dolphins? Hold on. Now, this is the debate here. We've got one spot left.
What are even the Chargers' chances?
The Chargers have like a 30% chance to make the playoffs. I mean, when you lose to the Houston Texans,
all right. It's not.
We have a new ceiling on San Fran. Jimmy G is out. We've talked about this. Now
That's when you floor.
Right. This is very true.
But yeah, I mean, the thing with the Niners, and we give the Niners a 4% chance to make the Super Bowl and a 2% chance to win it. That is among these teams with like 8 wins or less. That is the highest. And again, because you have great coaching in Shanahan. The coaching for Shanahan, everybody's wrong about him, including me. I think he's a little overrated, but the people who think he's a god. But I think that they have enough things at the edges, the Deebo Samuels, the George Kittles, the Nick Bosas.
They're unique. It makes them a challenge for everybody.
Yeah, okay, they're going to be a challenging team to face.
So then I'm going to set it up like this. You tell me if this team makes the playoffs, if you think they even have a chance to win a playoff game, okay? Miami.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so then they're out of they're a pretender. They're a pretender in this. The Chargers.
The Chargers, yes.
They have a chance.
They would have a chance.
But the Chargers have
hold
an
on.
extremely hard time getting in.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to take that into consideration. The Browns. If the Browns get in, do we think they're beating anybody? Really?
No.
Okay, so then that makes the Browns a pretender. Put the Browns as the pretender. Niners.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the Niners.
Okay, then it sounds like we have the most confidence with the San Francisco 49ers. So then, yeah, let's put the Niners in that final playoff spot. That would leave Chargers are probably pretenders. I think Raiders would be, Ravens.
Yeah.
We're putting the Steelers there, the Eagles.
Can we put the Steelers down one more?
Do you want to put the Steelers in the
They
basement?
could win that division, Ian. I think it's so hard.
I think we can. Well, if we're running out of spots here, would you rather? Okay, put the Steelers up there.
I just kind of want to be a dick
The
about it.
Steelers have alligator blood.
So we're for sure putting the Eagles.
The Eagles have to be
on that
I
pretender.
think everybody else is.
And then are we comfortable with basically everybody else?
Denver has less than a 1% chance to make the playoffs. They got swept by Oakland.
Denver's not a basement. Denver's not a basement
Hold on.
team.
Is
It's not a
Seattle
basement team, but we
still
don't
in
have
win
enough
now
room for
mode,
them.
even though Adrian Peterson's on IR?
Is Seattle?
Are they still in win now mode?
Yeah, because now they got
No,
first-round Penny cooking.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Just making sure.
Vikings have Sean Mannion starting this week, so even if
It's beautiful.
yeah,
The Vikings, Falcons, and Saints are all technically still in the hunt. They're one game back right now of making it into the playoffs.
Technically.
Of those teams, the Saints have, I think, the most mathematical chance because they go Carolina at home this week.
But they're pretenders.
And yes,
Okay,
they're not.
so then they're
I mean, they go into the playoffs, and if you try to walk Taysom Hill
The
into the
Taysom
playoffs,
train.
yeah, I can't do
Choo-choo. Let's go.
Would we put the Broncos, the Vikings, the Falcons, or the Saints in there instead of the Steelers?
I put the Vikings there with Kirk.
The problem is you don't get that's like the plexiglass.
That's not the
failed.
reality we live in.
Yeah.
I would also
What's
like
the
to
difference between
think
Manny and
that the
Big Ben?
pandemic never happened, but here we
Look,
are.
Ian, I love the energy. I love the what's the difference between Big Ben and Sean Mannion? It's a good question.
Thank you.
But like the problem is
pounds.
the problem is that the Steelers get the Browns at home on Monday, which is a much better chance as 3-point underdogs than the Vikings at 13-point dogs with Sean Mannion in Lambeau. Is Sean Mannion a win in Lambeau guy? My money's on no.
Wouldn't have thought so.
Yeah, probably on no. All right, we're filling out the basement teams right there.
Oh, look, the Jets being competitive. Love it.
The Jets are not competitive. They're in the basement.
Remember when the Panthers were
We have one more basement spot.
Yeah.
Do you want to add any of
Panthers-
these teams?
Well, remember when the Panthers were all in? We got to put them all in.
I feel like we might actually have to put the Panthers in the
Yeah.
basement. It's bad in Carolina right now.
It's not.
They've
great.
got a quarterback pitching
Do they?
rotation.
Oh.
Yeah, you had to
What's
let
the
me finish there.
positive from week 1 to now? What's been the good development for the Panthers? The defense
They
is
signed
better
Cam
than we
Newton.
thought.
They signed Cam Newton.
They
It
signed
was,
Cam
it was
They
cool.
acquired
it was cool
Stephon
for
Gilmore, who still looks pretty good.
Yeah, they got Stephon
That's
Gilmore.
good.
Okay, they're
He's hurt
paying
now,
for it, but still.
Yeah, they drafted
There's
a
just not a lot of
corner in
good.
the top 10 just so that they could
Trade
trade
him.
for another
Yep.
corner from the top 10 in C.J. Henderson and Stephon Gilmore.
Yep.
Like, I think their defense has good players. Shaq Thompson's a great player. Burns, obviously, Reddick.
Next year.
Derek Brown. Like, they should have a good defense. The problem is obviously, like, you don't have a quarterback and you could have got, I mean,
I think we all know Darnold isn't the answer, but are we positive they're not going to see if that's still the case in 2022?
Well, they
They're
have
also
him,
kind of stuck with him.
they have him on the fifth
Right.
year.
Terrifying.
But they can't go. They can't go in there. We're not going to totally just like devolve into a Carolina Panthers talk here. But like they can't go into next year with just Sam Darnold.
In this economy.
Matt Rule might as well just go home. Like, just fire himself at that point because they're not going to win.
I think you have to put the Panthers all into the basement.
All into the basement. Okay, there we go. That's the final spot. Okay, that wasn't like totally perfect because we've got the Broncos and obviously like the Saints that are right there. They could probably be in that area. But we've got 5 teams. We've got 5 teams that are potential Super Bowl teams, handful of playoff teams that might be able to play that spoiler role, right?
Spunky.
These are teams that can win a game or two in the playoffs, maybe upset even one of those top teams, but not teams that we really believe in to win those 3 or 4.
And then 6 teams just lost in space.
Yeah, so, that's just...
I mean, the Vikings being in purgatory and the Falcons being in purgatory is sort of perfect.
That is actually kind of perfect. That's pretty good. All right, Ian, it's fantasy playoffs
Let's
time.
go. Fantasy
But
championship
it's
time.
fantasy championship time. There are a lot of people whose happiness rides on what happens with things that they cannot control in any way, shape, or form happening in the NFL this week. What do you got to say about championship week?
It's so great. It's already a small sample league that we have with the NFL. 82 games in basketball, hockey. We only have now 17 of them. And then not only do we only have 17, we take 11, 12 weeks to decide who's in the playoffs. And then we do single elimination like complete maniacs. But it's what we signed up for and it's what we're here for. So Championship Sunday, guys. Great day to be great. Who do you guys think could end up being the MVP? Because last year we had Alvin Kamara wearing the Christmas cleats, going in there for 6 touchdowns. Myles Gaskin had a massive game and pulled a lot of squads to the top. So I get it. Some of the guys that got us here are still going to be the big performers. But, just like we have the Kevin Ogletrees of the world in week 1, just popping off randomly, could be some wild cards here week 17
Frisman
as well.
Jackson for the Browns in week 1 of... I'm actually going to go with somebody who obviously is like down the middle. If you have this guy, he's going to win you your championship. There was a pregame show that posited the idea that Joe Burrow was the better quarterback in today's game.
Not just one. There have been several.
Yeah.
The takes are out there.
And we had that Thursday night when the Chiefs played the Los Angeles Chargers in the game that clinched basically the AFC West. We saw what happened there. We had it also in the AFC title game last year when people, said that the Buffalo Bills had the clear advantage at quarterback in Josh Allen over Patrick Mahomes. It's just right over there. I think that's Arrowhead East today. I think Mahomes is going to go for 350 and 4 today.
Ooh.
And as such, congratulations if you have him on your team.
I'm going to go on the other side. Tyler Boyd.
Oh.
Tyler Boyd's not hurt, right? He's playing.
Good.
Playing. Okay.
So
Tyler
good.
Boyd. Because I think Mahomes also goes off today. And I think Burrow's going to have to keep pace with him. And you got T. Higgins going off. Chiefs aren't going to forget about him. They're not going to forget about Jamar Chase. Tyler Boyd is going to be the X factor that wins you your fantasy championship.
If Boyd is 202 yards away from 1,000 yards this season, I believe. So we've had teams like the Cardinals with Steve Breston, Larry Fitzgerald, and Anquan Bolton have 3 1,000-yard guys. I believe the Falcons in 1995 with the run and shoot had 3 1,000-yard receivers and a 1,000-yard rusher. That would be what the Bengals would have if Boyd got over, basically 202 yards in the last 2 games. They'd have 3 1,000-yard receivers and a 1,000-yard rusher. Pretty impressive for the Bengals this
By
year.
the way, it's completely unrelated, but I think the only team to get the 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and the running back were those Broncos with Peyton.
Yeah, that's right.
No
That's
Sean,
right.
Julius Thomas.
That's right. No Sean
Dak.
Moreno had the 1,000 yards.
that
That's
was a
right.
great
I remember drafting Julius Thomas super late in
my
fantasy,
gosh.
and it was just the greatest gold mine
One
I
touchdown after
ever
another.
hit. Sam,
Orange
you got
Julius.
anybody? Orange Julius, yeah.
I mean, Cooper Kupp has been breaking records, setting records all season long. I think he's going to have another absolute monster game this week. The Ravens have been calling guys off the couch for the last several weeks
true.
to cover some of the best
true.
wide receivers in the NFL. The Rams are cooking right now. That offense is as good as ever. Kupp remains as uncoverable as ever, even when you have defensive backs.
Did you watch Stafford play against the Vikings on Sunday?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I feel like the Ravens are going to be just out of position enough to catch a few of his passes.
Because that doesn't hurt Cooper Kupp.
It does-
just means they got to score more.
Yeah, it does. It does. I think Stafford's a 4-touchdown, 3-pick guy this week.
Okay.
Have the Ravens called you yet? I know you talked about maybe getting back in the NFL yourself.
I was gonna say, like, imagine being a street free agent as corner, and the Ravens haven't called you yet. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's like being at the dance and like they say
It is
snowball,
tough,
and like
yeah.
you're just all by yourself.
Yeah. You got to start getting into your broadcast career at that point. Like, it's over.
Wrapping this up, 2 guys that have not played in a few weeks. in one guy case, only twice all year. Trey Lance and Elijah Mitchell for the San Francisco 49ers. Trust these guys. Don't go crazy. If you have Patrick Mahomes, you're starting him over Trey Lance, but that's a legitimate question I got this morning. So Trey Lance is a top 10 quarterback because of that sweet, sweet rushing, taking him over Taysom Hill, over Tyler Huntley, over those bridge guys that you aren't feeling great about. And with Elijah Mitchell, one of only a handful of running backs with true 30-touch upside, might not even need it. They're facing the freaking Texans. So I know we have guys, coming off of injury. It's a little bit scary getting them out there. But in Mitchell's case, we've seen this happen throughout the year. Shanny's gone right back to him. And with him practicing in at least a limited fashion all week, Elijah Mitchell, top 10 RB. Go get those points.
Man, we are previewing a lot of games this week, but before we get to that, got to remind people that Western and Southern is teaming up with PFF's very own Chris Collinsworth to get you ahead on both your fantasy and financial scoreboards. You can ask Chris all sorts of questions. You want to hear about his playing days, maybe some behind-the-scenes story with Al on Sunday night, or maybe do you just want to ask Western and Southern folks about hitting your financial goals? Now you can do both, and every question that you ask gets you a ticket to maybe win a catered event for the big game. That's right, the big game that happens in February. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. You can ask these questions over at westernsouthern.com/askchris. That is westernsouthern.com/askchris. All the questions are answered either on Chris Collinsworth's podcast or on Western and Southern's Instagram. Remember, with Western and Southern, you can rest assured on game day. Broncos and Chargers is the first one that I want to preview. We talked about the Chargers. There's things to like. They're a dangerous team, but they haven't exactly played up to that hype at all times this season. Eric, you mentioned about a 30-ish% chance to make the playoffs here for the Chargers. What do you think about this game and the Chargers' chances going into this?
Yeah, this opened at 6.5. It's now 7.5. The Broncos won their first game against the Chargers in Denver by multiple scores. I kind of like them to cover this number here of over a full touchdown. We're talking about a team in the Chargers who lost to the Houston Texans last week we're kind
I feel like you're going to bring this up a lot this show.
Kind of handled by them.
Also, the Texans' backups. It wasn't even a full-strength Texans.
It's strange.
I mean, a full-strength Texans team is backups.
Yes.
You know?
The quintessential, Chargers team is a team that takes the Chiefs down to overtime, outplays them, loses a close game, and then the next week donks one to the Texans. So for the playoff picture, Denver has basically a 1 in a million chance, right? It's basically, everything has to break right for them to make the playoffs. They're already, both of these teams are eliminated from the AFC West. If the Chargers were to win, they're about 50-50 to make the playoffs. But right now they're about a 1 in 3 chance. If they lose, they're still alive, but at about 10%. So, as much as we all hype Brandon Staley for Coach of the Year, as much as we hype Herbert, they're still very much on the outside looking in, and they have to take care of business this week just to sort of stay in the hunt, really, which is tricky for a team that had so much fanfare at the beginning of the year.
Yeah,
Sam, what do you think?
I like Denver as well. I think last week, weirdly, the Drew Lock experiment. Drew Lock played reasonably well last week.
Boring. I didn't like it.
You didn't like it. His best two passes.
You just wanted 50-yard bombs
I want
every play.
entertainly bad, not no.
Oh,
turnover.
you're right.
That was the problem. Yeah, there was nothing really bad in there. But his best two passes fell incomplete. Cortland Sutton couldn't get his feet down on the sideline. Another guy up the seam couldn't come in with it. I think that they are smart enough to not look at that and say, oh, let's just turn them loose, right? They are going to say, let's get back to the run game, which has been really good outside of last week, where Melvin Gordon had 7 carries for -4 yards or something ridiculous. So I think they're going to get back to running the ball against one of the worst run defenses in the entire NFL.
I thought you were pointing at me.
Well, you're probably not a great run defender, right?
Yeah, no, it's true.
And
it's facts.
If Drew Lock doesn't screw it up, which God knows is not a sure thing, then I think they cover that number.
But I think that's the question. No, this Chargers run D that Rex freaking Burkhead just looked like a superhuman against. I'm not concerned about them. I wasn't really concerned about the Raiders last week, though, and they were able to really stunt Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. That was the first time since week 6 that neither Gordon nor Javonte, at least one of them, didn't finish as a top 24 fantasy back. So, no, I'm not worried about the Chargers. But this Denver offense, even when Teddy was under center, they've just been struggling more times than not throughout this year. So, before the show, Eric, you were talking about Cincy, Bama, and going in okay, can Cincy even score 14 points? Yeah. Can Denver score 14 points? Because I don't know.
Yeah, the one weakness here is the Chargers. I think that we're all talking about the Denver offense and can they keep up. I think that it's a good question whether the Chargers offense can. The Chargers are the 5th worst team in the NFL in terms of contested targets at right over 20%. when you look at the games they've struggled against, it's against secondaries like the Denver Broncos who can kind of lock them down. And that's where you've seen sort of Herbert digress into interceptions and plays like that. And it's really why the Chargers, despite all their talent, you come up for air and you're like, why are they 8-7? It's like they put too many things to chance, and targets in the passing game are the number one thing they put to chance. More than 20% of the time, where the top teams in the league are right around 10. So they're putting targets at risk twice as much as everybody else.
I still like the Chargers to win this game, but I feel like it's too many points for the Denver Broncos. And something that I wanted to note is this Chargers defensive line is basically just Joey Bosa and no one else. Bosa has an elite pass rushing grade on the season, above 90. Yep. No one else on the defensive line has a pass rush grade above 80 at all. Yep. Derwin James is the next highest pass rush grade that we have for the Chargers. On the season, Chargers as a team have about a 74-75 grade for us. Without Bosa last week, they had a 56.9 passing grade. I mean, they're just terrible without Joey Bosa. They get him back this week, so I think it's a return to at least stable average. Bosa's going to do his thing. I think that's going to be enough to where the Chargers aren't going to be catastrophic like they were losing to the Houston Texans. I think they're going to win the game, but I think it's going to be closer than the line is at 7.5 there. So 6.5, 7.5, whatever it is. I like the Broncos to cover that one. Dolphins at Titans is the next game. We mentioned Tennessee Titans as a potential number 1 overall seed still in the AFC, which is kind of crazy thinking about how long it's been since we talked about them in that regard, since Derrick Henry went out. But they're sitting here. They are now bringing in the red-hot Miami Dolphins, the NFL's juggernaut, 7 in a row. Sam, what do we think about this matchup?
I mean, look, if you're going to put the Miami defense against 6 atrocious quarterbacks and Lamar Jackson, then they're going to roll. And that's exactly what's been happening. Like, they have one legitimate win during this run of 7 victories, and that was against Lamar Jackson, where they zero blitzed him basically all game long and said, we're going to rush 6 guys, we're going to keep you in the pocket, and if you can create a pass game out of that, fine, well done. If you can't, we win the game. And that's exactly what happened. There isn't the same blueprint to beating Tennessee, particularly if they're getting guys back. Ryan Tannehill averages 8 yards per attempt against the blitz this year. You're not going to be able to do the same thing to him as you were against Lamar. So this is like the first test that Miami has had during this run of 7 wins.
Yeah, the thing, and even with that win that the Dolphins got against the Ravens on that Sunday had just played all, like, 4 quarters in a full overtime against the Vikings. Then they played on Thursday the next, 3 days later. They were gassed and injured and all that stuff. So the Dolphins really have, and even when they faced the Saints, it was with Ian Book, right? Yes. Like, they've really lived a charmed existence here. And as such, the funniest thing about this, they're winning 7 games in a row, and as the graphic said, they still only have a 26% chance to make the playoffs. They have to win this game to get over a coin flip to make the playoffs at 55%. Tennessee wins the division and makes the playoffs with a win today. The 1 seed implications are pretty clear. The Titans have to win out and hope the Chiefs lose 1 game, and because they had that blowout win in Tennessee against Kansas City for the tiebreaker. If they lose today and the Chiefs beat the Bengals, the Chiefs have the 1 seed sewed up. So this is a must-win for Tennessee, but it's also a must-win for Miami. If Miami loses, they have an 8% chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at that stretch of teams that they have played up to this point, to get all the way back from 1-7 to 8-7, the combined record of their opponents, Sam, we talked about this on your podcast, 36-69. And the only teams above 500 were the Ravens and the Saints, who started Ian Book against Miami. So it's just, I don't mean to take too much away from Miami. You got to still win the games. It's tough to win in the NFL. But when you start going up against better teams like here, I'm not going to have a lot of faith in you because you just certainly haven't proven it yet. That doesn't mean that they can't win today. But it's not like you're, of course, no question about it, taking the team that has won 7 games in a row.
2 weeks ago, maybe, if A.J. Brown wasn't back, I think that could arguably be enough for it. But he is, and that did help bring back maybe not the best version of Ryan Tannehill, but at least better than what we've seen over the past 6 weeks. Last week marked the first time since week 10 that Tannehill averaged even 70 yards per attempt in his 80.0 PFF passing grade, best mark since week 9. So AJB, rookie year, second year, and this year, he's been a top 7 wide receiver in our yards per out run. Get your popcorn ready, because I think he's got Xavier Howard in that hip pocket all day long. We'll see who wins.
Man, Titans, they win this game. Eric talked about it. I mean, the 1 seed is still alive there. Rumblings about maybe getting Derrick Henry back for the playoffs. I mean, this is going back
to that. That is going to blow up Twitter once we get the Derrick Henry has returned.
Oh, yeah.
Time's just going to stop for like 30 minutes.
Well,
I can't wait.
And especially if they're a team that you mentioned how important a 1 seed is. Obviously, you get home field advantage. You like that because, you obviously don't have to go to opposing teams' fan bases and everything. And you just don't have a lot of distractions. You get to stay at home. But even more important for the Titans, they get an extra week to rest to get Derrick Henry back, which is massive. So this game is huge for the Titans. Certainly huge for the Dolphins as well. I think the Titans are going to come out on top. You guys agree? Anybody taking the Dolphins in this one?
Yeah, I think our models like the Titans even against the spread at -3 here. It's gotten to 3.5 at times, but sort of settling in at 3. I think the Titans are probably the right side, which Chiefs fans will find upsetting, but that just means that the Chiefs have to win out to get the 1 seed versus this team.
Cardinals and Cowboys. In Dallas, 2 double-digit win teams already. Obviously, a lot to play for with these teams as well. Cowboys are favored by almost a touchdown, 6.5 points. Sam, what do you think about that line? Man, to think that the Cowboys would have been favored by almost a touchdown against the Cardinals not too long ago would have been pretty crazy. Some people would have just been like, oh, this game's a pick 'em. And here we are with almost a touchdown favorite for the Cowboys.
Pretty much as soon as everybody bought into Arizona, the wheels fell off. They've lost games that they shouldn't have won relative to where they were. Things haven't looked great. And the Cowboys look to be back. And in particular, they have been a way better team. And in particular, Dak Prescott has been way better at home than he's been on the road this season. Across the board, the numbers are so much better. He's averaging significantly more yards per attempt. He's more aggressive. His average at the target is deeper. He's got a better big-time throw rate, makes way fewer mistakes. The passer rating, because of all those things, is way better as well. So with all those things, the receivers back, the offensive line pretty healthy. It's hard to see how this Cowboys offense doesn't absolutely roll, at which point all the onus becomes on Arizona and Kyler Murray and keeping up on the road.
Well, that has been the thing, right? Since Murray, had 4 turnover-worthy plays before leaving with an injury mid-season. He's had 7 since. He didn't have any last week, which was interesting. But then, every single game before the injury, he averaged more than 7.6 yards per attempt, which is basically an above-average yards per attempt. You're doing that every single game. That's basically the baseline that you've generated, and that's why you're winning football games. The last 2 weeks, he's been under 6.5 yards in attempts. So it's been the Cliff Kingsbury thing where they start out hot and the league finds them out, slash people get injured. That being said, I do think that this is a situation where you're buying the Cardinals at the absolute nadir of their sort of price, and you're selling Dallas at the very high end, right? And so I do think 6.5 is too many in this game, and I would take Arizona.
It is wild how good Kyler and company when they were humming. I mean, before Kyler got hurt, I'm not so sure there was a better MVP candidate out there. And as Eric said, the numbers have fallen back to earth a little bit in recent weeks. But even with the recent drop-off in performance, you still look at Kyler on the season, number 1 in our big-time throwaway percentage at 8.4%, and he still put together the 4th best turnover-worthy play rate at 2.2%. So seeing him make these, quote-unquote big-time, tight window, elite throws, whatever you want to call them, while still limiting mistakes, I mean, we talked earlier what could have happened for the Panthers this year. Nothing has really gone right. At least if the wheels kind of fall off for Arizona, that Kyler Murray is your guy for the foreseeable future. So we'll see what this offense looks like, because now without DeAndre Hopkins, it's been another thing for Kyler to have to overcome. And over these past 2 weeks, Zach Ertz has had 24 targets, Christian Kirk has had 21, and then nobody else is over 11. So wasn't exactly thinking that here January we are now, that Zach Ertz would be the focal point of the Arizona Cardinals offense, but here we are, and we're going to need to see Kyler be better than ever, put that Superman cape on, because the Cowboys do look like the more complete.
And that was something that when we looked at their offense, we thought as this was a feather in their cap, was that they were spreading the ball out so much, and Hopkins wasn't needing to put up all those numbers. And a lot of the games with Colt McCoy starting, Hopkins wasn't playing either, and they somehow still won those games. And now, obviously, we see the issue where he doesn't have that thing he can revert to. Now, the one thing that I will say that will probably come out in this game is the running from Kyler Murray. Murray has not run a ton this year. Last week was the first time we saw him really gain, was it over 50 yards or something all season. I think he does pull that out this week just to sort of, in their desperation for a win. If they were to win here, they would double their NFC West title odds from 23% to 46%. Obviously, we're already going to know the result of the Rams game against the Ravens before we see this game in Dallas, but it is important. They are still alive. Basically win out and hope the Rams either lose today to a banged-up Ravens team or to a San Francisco 49ers team at home the following week.
Last thing, Kyler does kind of run like an angry toddler. Like fastest one we've ever seen.
He's like Stewie, yeah.
Yeah. You know.
Oh, man. I didn't even think of that, but that's actually really good. That's a good comp. No, I just wanted to say before we moved on from this convo, Seth Galina wrote a great article over at PFF really looking at Cliff Kingsbury's time as a head coach, not just in the NFL, but also at Texas Tech. And this is a very, very common theme. They start out really hot. They have a great install during the summer and during the spring or whatever, and they come out and they really know how to attack you. Same thing at Texas Tech like it was with Arizona. And in the second half of all of these seasons, it just feels like Cliff doesn't have the adjustments either within his own structure or whatever it is to really overcome a lot of that. You know, when DeAndre Hopkins goes out, Seth talked in the article about how there's so many hyper-specific roles in this offense that it's not like they've changed a ton to make up for it. It's almost like they've just put Antoine Wesley like in that DeAndre Hopkins being like, okay, you're playing this role now. And obviously that's a big difference when you're not trying to make up for it in a lot of different spots. So the ball might go other places, but maybe the structure is still easy to identify, and that might be a reason that even with Kyler Murray coming back, we're still seeing Arizona struggle because they're just not adjusting as much through the seasons of a season, if you will, that you kind of need to do if you're a head coach.
Well, give Cliff a couple more second-round wide receivers, under 5 foot.
But we've seen this. You saw this in Tampa Bay, right? Like, there are just some times when a coach is really good at getting a team out of the depths, right? Like, I think about Tampa Bay was like, years and years and years, no winning seasons. They get Dungy in there, and Dungy gets them to a certain level, and then the next coach has to come in and finish the job. Is it a situation in Arizona where Kingsbury, I mean, you look at that team, they were like half a yard worse per play than any other offense in the NFL in 2018. He comes in and gets them in the top half of the league in a couple of years, but it's very clear where the ceiling kind of is right now, and it would take a upset for him to upend the decade of history of him for a coach. Is it time for Arizona to possibly think about, okay, we've gotten to this point now, but this is the ceiling for us. Do we have to get another head coach in the fold to win that sort of NFC West Super Bowl? Especially now, like you're on year 3 of Kyler Murray's rookie deal, you have to sort of think about it.
Right. No, there's a lot of things to think about right now in Arizona because there's you can see with head coaching decision making that we have seen in the past in the NFL, it gets real frustrating when you are that playoff team that cannot quite get over the hump. You start to really get into some, I don't want to say irrational decisions, but the clock starts ticking even faster. You start getting a lot more impatient with a lot of those guys that are at the top. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Arizona, not just this week, but moving forward. All right, a fun game that I wanted to play here on the show. We've done this before. It's the Who Am I game where I give you guys some PFF premium hints, some stats, where they are in the standings. But today we're doing it for teams. We did it for players before. It was a Who Am I. Now it is a Who Are We. So I'm going to give you guys some hints, and you guys are going to have to guess. And it's a free-for-all. When you know it, you could just say it out loud. What we're going to do is I'm going to adjust the point system a little bit. I'm doing this on the fly. I hope it works with math in my head. We'll see. You get 2 points if you get it right, but it's -1 point if you say the answer and you get it wrong. So I'm adjusting it a little bit.
So the way to win this game
Kirk Cousins would suck at this game.
The way to win this game is to still say nothing. Gotcha.
Somebody's got to have some entertainment value. Okay, all right. First one. We are the only team in the NFL ranked in the top 4 in both run blocking and pass blocking. That's the first hint.
Browns.
All right, -1.
See?
Everyone has to have an answer at some point.
No, you didn't say that.
When we get to the
That
end,
changes
when
everything.
we get to the very end, everybody has to at least have an answer. Okay, second hint. Our highest graded game this season came last week. It was a PFF grade of 87. So we've got a really good run blocking team.
I know what it is now.
You could say it again.
It's the Cowboys.
It's the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, come on, guys.
See, so he got -1, and now he got +2.
Now you're ahead.
So now he's ahead. Listen, look at you. I just want anyone to win other than Sin because of the strategy.
Yeah.
The one that I deployed to win the last time we played. But we won't talk about that. Okay, question two. Question 2. We are the only team with passing grades and receiving grades, both ranked top 3 in the NFL, a 90 passing grade, 82 receiving grade. Any guesses?
Tampa Bay.
-1.
Oh, I was going to guess that. And I realized you
Nothing?
said
Anything?
Cincinnati.
It's a Cincinnati
Oh
Bengals.
my gosh. Kingsbury,
The other hints that we had were tied with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for 4th with PFF grade, and then we've scored the 7th most points in the league this season at 410.
Didn't need him.
3-0-0-3. Look at this guy. He's shooting. He's a volume shooter.
I gotta get
right
a big
there.
time answer here.
Oh no! Wait. He's got -1. He's got -1. Right. Sam's just gonna sit it for second place.
Sam's gonna end up with an 80 PFF grade after all this.
Oh man,
Kirk
he's
Cousins,
Kirk Cousins working the system. That's what he's doing. All right, third one. We are ranked as the lowest PFF graded passing team in the NFL at 52.9.
Jacksonville.
Wrong.
God.
Any other guesses? Don't have to guess.
That was me pulling up from the logo.
Yeah.
Heat check.
Okay. All right. We also rank last in the league with a 63.5 receiving grade. This is the only hint. I don't have a third one for this one, so it's just these two. No. So -2, 2, 0. You have to have a guess.
The Lions?
No.
Damn it.
Houston.
I'm not going to count that guess because now you're just firing from the hip. But it is the Carolina Panthers. Panthers have the lowest passing grade in the NFL.
Thanks, Sam. Not you.
Yeah.
And what's more surprising, this was actually less of a hint. This was more of a surprising. Last in the league in receiving grade with DJ Moore on the team.
Well, I think Robbie Anderson is kind of checked
I
out.
know, but still, with DJ Moore on the team.
Except when he gets the first down.
I would go through
And he's
things
back
in my
there.
head, and I'd be like, okay, DJ Moore is on the team. There's no way they're the lowest.
CMC played, what, 5 games at least?
Yeah, I think CMC was actually. I think CMC has the highest receiving grade of any player.
Yeah, he's
still.
up there,
Obviously,
yeah,
he
for
hasn't
everyone.
played a lot, but okay. So you have 2,
Yeah.
-2, -1. All right, we've got 2 left.
Attaboy Kirk.
Our defensive PFF grade is tied for 3rd best in the NFL at 74.2. So a good defensive team. Any guesses? It's not really a super specific hint, but we have an offensive PFF grade that ranks bottom 8 in the league at 76.7.
New Orleans Saints.
No,
Dolphins.
it's the Dolphins. It's the Miami Dolphins. The last hint was our highest graded game came in a 33-10 win over the Carolina Panthers in Week 12. Would that have helped? Would you guys have known that? I wouldn't have known that off the top of my head. Ian's the only one that you got 4, right?
4. I can afford to lose.
-3.
Just having fun.
-1. -1.
Oh,
Okay.
that
If Eric gets this last question, he ties Ian. It'll be a 7. This is a 7-point swing.
I'm Jameis throwing a deep ball to get it all back.
Okay, all right. So this is a 7-point question. So literally anybody can still win on
Down
this
28
one.
with 30
I can do what I
seconds
want.
left.
I'm holding the card. I can do what I want.
Yep.
I'm holding the card. Are you holding the card? You want to? Nope. Not holding the card. Well, I have 5 hints for this one. Okay, it might be a long game here. Okay, we have the highest graded pass blocking, 82.5. Highest graded defense, 84.2. Highest graded run defense, 87.9. Highest graded pass rush at 85. Anybody? Anything so far?
Bills?
No.
Dallas.
No. And highest overall PFF grade in the NFL at 93.
I feel like we should know this.
That was all 5. That was
Anything?
all 5 hints.
New England.
No.
Oh, I'm
Almost.
-4.
Hey.
You want me to give you another hint? I just
Sure.
have one off the top of my head. Their quarterback can't win in Lambeau.
Oh, the Rams.
It's the Rams.
Yeah.
It's the Rams. It's the Los Angeles Rams. There we go.
We doubted the Rams all year. Doubted the Rams all year.
Damn, those are some numbers.
There we go. So I don't think I'm going to give you the full 7 points on that one. So Ian, you are our champion of Who Are We? I don't know if we're going to have another one before we get into the playoffs or not, but you might have the crown going into the offseason.
First or last, man. Good to be here.
Wow, that's short and sweet right there. Speech. All right, so speaking of the Rams at Ravens. That's the next game that I want to preview here. That was a nice little segue there.
There we go.
Rams, 11-4, now in the playoffs, ahead of their division. Ravens, not so great. 8-7. It's not going great for the Ravens as of right now. Rams as the road team in Baltimore, still favored by 6.5. Sam, what do we think about this game?
And this is another game, another week for Baltimore where the line has kind of moved depending on Lamar.
Right, yeah.
Last week there was this really neat step where it was Lamar, Huntley, and then Josh Johnson, and the line moved sequentially each time. This week, when it was Lamar, when it looked like it was going to be Lamar and maybe healthy, it felt like Vegas was giving Baltimore way too much respect. Like, this was a close line, and even when Lamar was healthy, the guy has an overall grade this year of 70. He hasn't had anything above 70 since week 5. They've got no secondary left whatsoever. They just got waxed by the Bengals, putting up a ton of points and yardage on them. Like, okay, yes, they're at home, but how much is that worth to you? It feels like with Lamar, this was a game where the line was way too close. And even with it going out as much as it has, it still feels like the Rams can go in there, roll, put up a ton of points. They have a good enough defense to cause all kinds of problems for whoever the quarterback is in Baltimore. Give me all the Rams stuff.
Yeah, this one started at 2.5 all the way up to 6.5. Like the video of Lamar on that like brown field, like trying to run, was just so sad. It's probably time to pack it in if you're the Ravens, but they do have a 25% chance to make the playoffs with a win today. And again, like I've talked about this on the show before, but like if they were to beat the Rams, it says something about the Ravens, right? It says that they're better than maybe their current power rankings. So that puts them up at 52% if they were to win. And if they do win, they have an 18% chance to win the AFC North. With a loss, they are eliminated from the AFC North, right? So, and with a loss and a Bengals loss, that sets up the aforementioned Cleveland, Cincinnati AFC North title game. So this is a big game for the Ravens. But just because it's a big game doesn't mean they're going to do well. And unfortunately, I just don't think that they have a good enough secondary to keep up with a Rams team that's first in the NFL this year in yards passing to wide receivers.
Yeah. A lot of top in the NFL stats that I read for that last who are we. So, I mean, the Rams are they're a really good football team this year, no doubt.
Yeah, and it wasn't just Burrows. Aaron Rodgers making this group look absolutely defenseless the week before that. So Sam brought up Cooper Kupp as the potential game breaker this week, and I know it's been that way all year, but I don't know if everyone understands the extent that he really has dominated. We can go back 50 years. You're only going to find one season where a wide receiver has been this productive. Even if you're not a fantasy guy, like just realize that they are an accumulation of receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. And with that in mind, only 1987 Jerry Rice has averaged more full PPR points per game than what Cooper Kupp has done this year. So Kupp, with a couple more big games, could legitimately put forward the most productive season really in the history of football. And if you've been on social media, noted alleged locker room cancer OBJ, he can't stop talking about the team wanting to get Cooper Kupp up over that 2,000 receiving yard mark.
Jerry Rice, 22 touchdowns in a strike-short 1987 season where he only played 12 games. Pretty crazy that Kupp is playing up to that level of brilliance.
It's also ridiculous that Rice is on there twice, 8 years apart.
Yeah,
87 to 95.
Yeah, ignorant millennials like us still say Team Moss.
It's true.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
Ignorant.
it is Moss, but
well, I mean, it's still Moss.
The answer is yes to who's better, honestly.
This is a game where, I mean, it's two good head coaches going at it, and as Eric was talking about, like, the Ravens are still in it. They still have a chance to make the playoffs. Man, it's funny. You look at a couple of 2-point conversions that go the other way, and the Ravens are probably already a lock to make the playoffs at this point. They're sitting at the top of the division, and that's just how close the game of football is. And I know there's been a lot of talk about whether you go for it and things like that, and all that goes into the Ravens season, which has just been very, very weird. And so, for as much as I agree with you guys, one team is rolling, one team is reeling, I can't help but think that, again, maybe the Ravens are going to keep this one a little bit close. I wouldn't bet on this one, but in my heart, I feel like this is going to be a close
Sam and I would talk about the Vikings keeping every game close, but you think about the Ravens, week 1, an overtime loss to the Raiders. They had an overtime win on Monday Night Football to Indianapolis. They, when they were 8-3, people within the organization are like, I don't know if we're that good because we're winning a bunch of close games, right? They win the close game overtime against the Vikings. And last week was really the first time they played a game when it wasn't really a contest on either end. You know what I mean? They haven't really blown. I mean, they beat the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football because of a fumble at the. They've played every game close, and we saw the luck in the first half of the season get them to 8-3. We see some bad luck, to your point, lately. I think this line is sort of maybe overreacting just a tad to last week's game, and maybe not taking into consideration how close they've kept other games, the Cleveland game where they lost by 2, so on and so forth, where they played hard even without their preferred quarterback in Lamar Jackson. So I think this does stay close. I do think the Rams are a house, though, at every place but the quarterback position. But we saw last week they kept the Vikings team in the game because their quarterback couldn't throw at the right team.
Sticking with the AFC North, Steelers and Browns. Baker Mayfield, Ben Roethlisberger, reportedly Ben Roethlisberger's final game at Heinz Field. A lot of words said about
acting
that
like
one.
This is his choice. Like, come on.
Oh man, there was a tweet. Somebody sent out a tweet.
So many jokes that we can't say right now.
Somebody sent out a tweet earlier this week and basically talked about Favre and
almost word for word. Unlike Joe Montana, Brett Favre, some other quarterback like that.
He knows it.
Ben Roethlisberger is not interested in playing for another team. At the end of his career.
Yeah, I'm also not interested in playing.
To which I replied, that works out quite nicely because another team is not interested in Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, that was.
We had Aaron Rodgers saying, I don't want to go out, bad. Like, he should have said, I don't want to go out like
Big
bad.
Ben this year has 0.28 wins above replacement. When you look at some of the great, like Brady's, about 4 wins above replacement. Burrow and Herbert about 3.5. Kirk Cousins right around 3 wins above replacement. So you're talking about the quarterbacks who have graded really well this year are like multiple wins above replacement. Big Ben, if you were to replace him with
Sean Mannion
for a whole season, it's like a quarter of a win less for the Steelers. That shows you how
so they
good,
wouldn't have a tie.
Yeah, they got the win.
So it shows you how good
that gets them into the playoffs.
How good Mike Tomlin's been, right on balance, basically his whole career, but also sort of how bad he's been. And at the same time, if you bet Steelers under 8.5 wins, that thing's still alive for you to lose. If you bet them to miss the playoffs, that thing's still alive. Pittsburgh going into the day has basically a 13% chance to make the playoffs. It goes up to 30% tomorrow with the W. Now, a lot of other stuff is going to happen before then, so that number's not going to be quite the same. They have a 6% chance to win the division. If they win, it goes up to 13%, right? And they basically just need to win out and get help from basically the Bengals, the Ravens to sort of win this division. And it's crazy because this team stinks. And I just don't get it.
And I don't think the win is crazy. Like, when you look at how they match up with the Browns, like, it's live.
And they've beaten, so they have the Browns this week, the Ravens next week. They've beaten both of these teams already.
Yeah.
Like, if they just complete the sweep and get help from I misspoke, but they get help from the Browns next week. So they beat the Browns, then get help from the Browns. They are your AFC North champion next year.
This is what we need to happen. All that, and then we get Steelers on the Nickelodeon game, and we get to ironically vote Big Ben for MVP. That's the send-off that we need.
Definitely happen.
Who's the ironic MVP?
Mr. Trubisky.
Oh, yeah, it was Mr. Trubisky.
And then he threw the
that's
touchdown
funny.
to Jimmy Graham, and Jimmy just bounced. It was great. Great Nickelodeon.
So, okay, what? Anything else with the game preview about this?
So when you
said
look,
they matched up well.
Cleveland's best player is Myles Garrett, right? Defensive Player of the Year kind of candidate, absolutely dominant force. Roethlisberger is getting the ball out of his hands faster than any quarterback in the NFL. He's averaging 2.2 seconds. If you can get pressure in 2 seconds, it is like, an instant miracle win against the left tackle. So you look like the last time they played, Garrett, they didn't get pressure on Ben Roethlisberger because he can't. The ball's just getting out there before anything happens. So you're immediately neutralizing like the single biggest strength that Cleveland has on defense. And the same thing is not true on the other side of the ball. Like, Pittsburgh has TJ Watt and Cameron Hayward, and those guys are still really good players. And Cleveland's offensive line is banged up. Like, they've been struggling as the years go on. So when you look on the defensive side, the thing that Cleveland are really good at might not be a factor in the game at all. The thing that Pittsburgh is pretty good at probably will.
Yeah, and we like Cleveland -3, -3.5 in this game, but that is like the place, if you're going to bet this, you're probably a little nervous, right? Because to cover a field goal or more, you need competent quarterback play in the NFL, and you're just not getting that out of Baker Mayfield. 4 interceptions last week. The biggest mismatch in this game, though, in my opinion, is Devin Bush against, basically the linebackers of Pittsburgh, who have been sort of out of sorts all year, against Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb being basically averaging 4.5 yards per carry. When the run game is not blocked up, he's averaging 4.5 yards a carry, which like a lot of these running backs in the NFL would die for in general. He's that good, and I don't think historically Pittsburgh has been great at the linebacker position every year, all the time. This year it's not been very good.
Let me give you a great number to tell you how important the quick time to throw is, right? The last time they played, Dan Moore Jr., the left tackle for the Steelers, had a pass blocking grade of 0. Nothing, like 0.0, basically was a human turnstile. And Ben Roethlisberger was pressured 6 times in the game.
Wow.
So it just does, if you're getting the ball out that fast, it does not matter what's in front of you from a pass protection standpoint.
I'm more impressed at 0. I'm not gonna lie. Than the 6 pressures.
It's like Baxter with the wheel of cheese. You're just honestly impressed.
Not even mad.
That was a good pull. I didn't know where you were going. I didn't know who Baxter was, and then there it was. You brought it home. Okay, we are rounding out the AFC North with the Kansas City Chiefs facing the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. We got a red-hot Cincinnati Bengals passing offense going up against a team that is now starting to really solidify themselves as maybe that juggernaut we thought they were going to be going into the season with the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs are still favored in this one as the road team by 3.5. Sam, what do you think about this matchup?
Well, at least, somebody is still thinking rationally. What is happening with the discourse in this game? People are saying, I would take Joe Burrow for the next 5 years over Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, of course.
The Bengals are the team that are rolling. What is happening? The Bengals offense is unstoppable. I saw somewhere on TV this week. 2 weeks ago they were stopped. They scored 15 against Denver. This team is not the absolutely unstoppable force that people are making it out to be. And in particular, they didn't have a great offensive line to begin with, and it's been banged up. They have been forced into the bench. And when you're forced into the bench on the offensive line, when the baseline was bad, you're in real trouble. And the Chiefs have defensive players that can exploit that. Chris Jones is better than every interior pass rush in the NFL not named Aaron Donald. Yep. The guy's got a ton of pressure this year. He might single-handedly ruin this game for Cincinnati's offense. Frank Clark has his best pass rushing grade since 2018. Melvin Ingram has multiple pressures in every game since they've acquired him. Joe Burrow, if there's a flaw to his game right now, it is that he takes too many sacks when pressured, and that things break down just a little bit too much. Even in the Ravens game last week, he took multiple hits that were that's not good. This game, I think the Chiefs' defense might derail Cincinnati.
And they match up well. That's the thing in this game. So the Bengals this year, we talk about the Rams having the most passing yards to wide receivers this year. Bengals are second. We talk about Boyd, Higgins, and Chase, all possibly getting 1,000 yards. They're second in the NFL in yards thrown to wide receivers. Since Steve Spagnuolo took over the Chiefs defense in 2019, the Chiefs are second best in the NFL in surrendering yards to wide receivers. Only Buffalo has allowed less yards or fewer yards to wide receivers. So to me, I think that matchup was perfect for Baltimore to exploit in Baltimore for the Bengals last week, but not so much. And we've seen, the question with Zach Taylor is always sins of omission and sins of commission. Oftentimes, he'll face a team like Denver and he'll just play it's 11 runs in the second half on first down versus one pass. And the question becomes, did he get the Rosetta Stone last week and say, look, I'm just going to lean on my best player?
Right.
Or did he see just a horrendous defense in front of him and say, I can let my guard down here, we're not going to lose? That's a big question, because I do think if they lean on Burrow, that's their only way to win. It could go catastrophically, but they're not going to win by running the ball to Joe Mixon.
The other question is, did Burrow just overrule him last week? All the talk about Burrow, bulletin board material. I'm not a Hall of Famer.
And if I own the Bengals, that's what I want to do. Joe Burrow is the most important person on the team in the city of Cincinnati, period, probably. And he needs to be able to override Zach Taylor. And I think if he does, that's their only chance to win this game is to go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. And they might lose catastrophically if they try. But if they try to run the football and play a confined game against Kansas City, they got no shot.
I was trying to show how good Burrow was on an Excel graph because I need to find better friends and things to do in my life. But anyway, the two variables I used were average target depth and just his adjusted completion rate, because the way Burrow just picks up his yards I find so aesthetically pleasing, and you see it through this, where he is first in adjusted completion rate even while maintaining the 8th highest average target depth downfield. I think that probably helps explain why he's taking some sacks really when he shouldn't be. But the only other guy that was even really in his segment of the graph was Derek Carr. And Eric, you brought up before, why is Derek Carr, have these really great numbers, but not really, be on that great of teams, offenses all the times, because they're not getting the same help. So Bengals 15th in pass play rate in non-garbage time situations before their bye. They're 17th afterwards. So yeah, I hope last week woke them up. But in the first game of the year against the Ravens, they also threw the ball far more consistently than were useful. So hopefully the second time's a charm, because yeah, I think we all freaking know Burrow's the answer.
Playoff implications in this game. The Bengals, as I said earlier, they're basically they have to win one of the next two, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a 73% chance to win the division. If they win today, they win the AFC North for the first time since 2015. The Chiefs, with a win today and a Miami win, or winning out, wins the 1 seed in the AFC, would be the 4th consecutive year where Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have gotten a bye in the AFC playoffs, including 3 number 1 seeds since he took over as the starting quarterback.
But Trevor, you hate Andy Reid and don't think he should ever be considered for
correct. I don't think he should be an NFL head coach. I'm kidding.
Chiefs, by the way,
do not clip that.
The last thing I'll say about the Chiefs, Andy Reid, since joining in 2013, if you bet their season win total over, you have won every single year. This year, to Trevor's point, and why Trevor's right, it was 12.5 preseason. They still have to win out to go over their Vegas expectation. And look, if you had an under-season win total bet when they were 3-4, praying for you.
Told you guys that'd be right. We got Darius on the line. We're going to get his thoughts on the Raiders-Colts game, as well as who he thinks are the contenders and pretenders for the Super Bowl. Before we get to that, man, if you are looking for signed sports memorabilia, Pristine Auction is the place to go. It's all auction style stuff. So all the bidding, it starts at $1. So if you find something, whatever you're looking for, favorite team, favorite player, whatever it is, you could get some real steals for that kind of stuff over at pristineauction.com. If you use the promo code PFF when you sign up, you're going to get $10 off. Whatever it is, the first auction that you win, not just the first one that you bet on, it will automatically apply to whatever the first auction is that you win. Go check it out over at pristineauction.com. And then also go check out PFF.com if you guys don't have a subscription yet. We've got 2 different subscription models, an Edge and an Elite. If you want to be able to tap into all of the premium stats that we have here on this desk, if you want to be on the other side of the camera, in the YouTube comments, screaming the answers to the who am I, who are we sections before we even know, you can do so if you get yourself a PFF subscription. So head over to PFF.com, check out that as well. Time to get our main man Darius Butler in the show here with us. And Darius, we're going to preview this Raiders-Colts game. We saved this last one for you so we can get your thoughts on the Colts as they get back to full strength here. But before we do that, earlier in the show, we here on the desk a little contenders pretenders segment. I'm not gonna have you run through. I'm not gonna have you run through like Super Bowl playoff pretenders and like the terrible teams. I just want to hear from you. Who are the legit Super Bowl contenders? We got 2 weeks left of the NFL season before the playoff starts. I want to hear how many teams and which teams you think could actually win a Super Bowl this year. Who you got?
I really only see 3 really hoisting that Lombardi, and that's on the AFC side. I'm only seeing the Chiefs right now, honestly. The Colts can go in there and wreck the party, but Chiefs. And then on the NFC side, either the Packers or the Bucks, and then the Cowboys can come spoil the party. But Packers, Bucks, Chiefs, I go with those 3 right now as far as real-life contenders that I see hoisting that Lombardi trophy this year.
All right, so you're out on Herbert spoiling the party with the Chargers. Okay. I just want to make sure. All right, guys.
Yeah, not this year. Not this year.
Okay. All right. You're saving that one, so you can go back to it and say, all right, I was a little early. I was first. I'm
coming in hot next year. Don't worry about it.
All right. How do we feel about that on the desk? Those 3 teams: Chiefs, Packers, Buccaneers. We think it's too exclusive. What do you guys think?
Well, it's really. It's funny, like we've turned the clock up a whole year, and like the same thing is true, right? Like at this time last year, right? Maybe we added Buffalo to the mix. I do think Buffalo is a team that you could, theoretically see doing that. They have an elite quarterback and a really good coach, but like for the most part, like we started the year, the Super Bowl favorites were, Chiefs, Bucks, Packers were a little bit on the outside looking in once we knew Rodgers was playing,
right?
And we're now in January, and it's the same freaking thing.
Yep.
It's really funny.
Yep. Guys, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think we knew that the Chiefs and the Bucs would be the 2 teams. To me, though, this year is such chaos that anybody can make it. I know that the teams that you expect to make it, those are the ones that you have the most confidence in going on that run, knocking off several good teams and going on, a consecutive run of wins. But every one of these teams has got a weird loss somewhere in their record, and it wouldn't shock me at all if we get to the playoffs and the same thing just starts happening. Like each one of these teams, that's the bad game they have, they're out, and all of a sudden the playoff picture is tipped upside down.
Well, that's the crazy thing. No, I guess not crazy, but that's part of the playoff conversation is that for a lot of these teams, can you see them winning 3 straight against really good competition, 4 straight against really good competition? Because I think there's plenty, we talked about this earlier in the show, there's plenty of teams that could play spoiler, right? Yeah. There's plenty of teams that can win a game if they make it into the playoffs, but winning a Super Bowl is different. Darius, I'm going to flip that argument a little bit, and I'm going to ask you, are there any teams that you think are just getting way too much hype right now? Like some people are putting in that Super Bowl conversation, a team that can win a 3 in a row, 4 in a row, make it to the final game, get the championship trophy. Any teams that really stand out for you there that are just getting way too much hype right now?
You know what? Not at this point. I think this last probably month has been a real separator of a lot of the teams. Obviously, the Titans on the AFC side, they're still sitting at a really high seed. Who I don't think a lot of people expected that, especially after Henry went out. But I don't have much faith in Tannehill down the stretch. But I wouldn't say, we just said the same three teams that came into the season with the best odds probably are the same three teams that we see going into it now. I know a lot of people on this Burrow Bengals train, especially after they slaughtered the Ravens. But I think the Chiefs will handle business against them today, and I think they're a year or two away from really competing as well. So I think I don't think anybody's getting too much hype right about now.
I was gonna ask him his prediction on that Chiefs Bengals game, because it is a big one, right? I mean, like if we get a monster Burrow game here, and they just happen to win, the narratives about Cincinnati are going to be through the roof.
As they should.
They're already through the roof.
Right, but if they win this week, it's going to be wild.
When you get Tennessee and Tennessee has a tough game this week against Miami, but if you get a win against Miami this week and a Chiefs loss to the Bengals, you're all of a sudden in a position where next week the Chiefs kind of have a tough game against the Broncos, right, on the road, and you have a game, I believe, against Houston where you're going to be favored by a car.
The Titans.
Right, yeah, for the Titans, and that's the 1 seed, right? And then you got the 1 seed, and then Henry comes back, and Brown and Julio become healthy, your defense sort of emerges, then it changed the complexion, right? Because as Sam said, and Darius said too, the Colts are a team that can upset somebody in the AFC. The Niners are the kind of the same team. They can upset somebody in the NFC. And then so if you chop the legs out of a Green Bay or a Kansas City, then I think that the team that ends up winning the Super Bowl is going to be a team that has an elite quarterback, because just because you can beat somebody in the playoffs doesn't mean you can win 4 straight games.
Right.
It's going to come down to who can win 4 straight games. And to me, you have to look at the elite quarterbacks in the groups. And that's Buffalo with Josh Allen. That's Dallas with Dak Prescott. Those are sort of the teams where if one of the great teams gets their legs chopped out from under them, that's going to be the one that emerges. But that's. I
think Dallas can definitely play spoiler on that NFC side. Dak obviously is a tremendous quarterback, ton of offensive weapons, but that defense and pass rush specifically, you get those guys at full strength, and then what they do on the back end as far as turning the ball over. When you have a pass rush like that, you don't have to lock down guys and keep them under 225 yards passing. You can just turn them over 3 or 4 times, and Dak and that offense can definitely put up points if they're put in favorable positions. So Cowboys can play spoiler. And then on the AFC side is still, wide open. You got one really, I would say, quarterback who has proved himself at this point in the season with 26 straight wins in November, December, and January with Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes. So on that side, I still like the Colts. They can play spoiler with that defense and Jonathan Taylor, obviously. But outside of those, I guess 5 teams, I don't think it'll be much surprise this year.
So let's talk about the Colts. Let's talk about a team that has a chance to get to double-digit wins on the season today against the Las Vegas Raiders. I know you're still calling them Oakland until they earn it. 2-game win streak? Have they earned it? Have they earned Vegas?
They almost earned that. But to me, I think the issue is they almost lucked into this really interesting path to the playoffs, right? Because a couple weeks ago they were left for dead, right? They were less than 10% to make it. They get a Browns team that has so many COVID issues. They get to play Nick Mullins. They almost lose that game, but they win it, right? And then last week they get a Denver team that I think they really match up well against. Mm-hmm. And then this week, starting out, Carson Wentz gets COVID, and you're thinking to yourself, what an absolute lucky ride for them. Right. We have the Raiders, if they win today, 60% chance to make the AFC playoffs, right? With a game next week against the Chargers. And but now, with a loss, they're only 12%, right? And so Carson Wentz coming back and being the quarterback for the Colts, I don't think he's great, but obviously he's better than Sam Ehlinger, and it really hurts the sort of mojo that I think the Raiders would have in sort of this lucky ride to the playoffs.
It is crazy to think that after everything that's happened with the Raiders, the great start, obviously everything that happened with Gruden, how they fell off after that, they still, if they win today, have an above 50% chance to make the playoffs.
It's ridiculous.
Which is pretty wild.
They've scored more than 17 points one time since losing Henry Ruggs and really seeing this offense, become so compressed. So it has been rough. But Darius, I have a question for you, because it's been, like they said, Sam Ehlinger was almost under center, and it is fantasy championship week. Jonathan Taylor got a lot of us there. So there was kind of some talk in the fantasy community. How far do we drop Wentz or Jonathan Taylor if Carson Wentz is not going to be under center? I want to go even further with it, though. We have Wentz, so that problem is kind of solved. If Eric was the Colts starting quarterback, would you take the over/under 100 rushing yards for Jonathan Taylor?
I would take the over probably 180 if he was the quarterback. But I still think he may crack it against this Raiders defense. Obviously, the Raiders defense, their strength is getting after the passer, and the Colts' strength is obviously running the ball and getting this O-line back to pretty much full strength. Jonathan Taylor, I think they're going to try to get him to that 2,000 yards and try to get him that MVP. So I expect him to get probably close to at least 30 carries today against this Raiders defense.
What was the team? What was the team during Bowl Week? Was it Air Force that's like hadn't thrown
98 straight plays without a pass.
That would be the Colts with you. But I've seen you, like fake simulate a snap up in the office with a football. You look confident. I'm not letting the ball leave your hands.
How
but like
you're that confidence would last in an NFL game? You think that confidence has got staying power beyond like?
He's not taking hits.
No, he's not. He's getting the ball out. He's handing the ball off. That's what I'm saying. Like, but he's just he's fake making checks to the line.
Yeah.
He's saying things to his players that are like, "What is this?"
I'm just saying it's very easy to be confident like snap 1. Being confident snap 3 is probably a different story.
Jonathan Taylor this year has almost 1,000 yards on perfectly blocked runs. That has nothing to do with me if I'm on this team. Right? There might be a few more players in the box because they don't respect me deep, and that's a mistake. But the other thing would be if I hand off right to Taylor, he cuts back. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3", a big guy. I'm going to block Yannick Ngakoue to the ground.
You're going to Ngakoue is going to launch you to the moon.
Can you make the mesh point on outside zone to get there?
They don't.
It'd be great to
No, but we would run gap and counters and stuff like that. Come on.
I thought this would be a fun throwaway line. Wasn't trying to start a whole segment, but
look, if you throw a scenario out like this with Eric should be like, all right, I might not succeed, but I will survive.
Darius is actually like a person who played in the NFL. He's like kind of rolling his eyes at all of this hypothetical stuff.
Yeah.
I think you could check him and get him into the right. Like Mac Jones up in Buffalo, just get him to the right plays. Hey, check, alert. All right, we're not running right. We're going to run left this time. So I think you could definitely add some value there.
Yeah, you're just gonna understand what the call is to change the play to just a halfback dive, and that's all you need to know. You'd go up to Frank and be like, "When can I change it?"
Look, I know, I hashtag played the game a long time ago, but I think I still would remember. I think I still would know, when to give the ball to Taylor, which is every day.
All of the time.
Yeah, exactly. I think so.
That's it.
Happy we can talk that.
Look, yeah. Okay, that's good. Darius, can we get some actual analysis here on this game here? Raiders, Colts. What do you think about it? Colts, I mean, it's not just Wentz. They're getting a lot of reinforcements back. Some guys back from injury, some guys off the COVID list. I mean, when we talk about playoff teams and teams that can really make some noise once January hits, often it's these teams that hit those lucky streaks, right? And I feel like the Colts are in that situation where they're getting a lot of guys healthy. How do you feel about them right now?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say they're hitting a lucky streak at all. Especially last week, they went out in Arizona and got a win with all the chips against them. We're down 8 starters. You get Rock back, you get Willis back, you get obviously Darius Leonard, the entire offensive line. Quarterback was close there, but we get him back this game. So I think they're going to come out full strength, and they're going to – I don't think this game will be close. I see the Colts winning this by a couple scores at home. My co-host, Antoine Bethea, will be on the Anvil pregame.
Nice.
They'll be hyped, man. They'll be excited. And like I said, I think they're really going to try to get 28 into the record book. I mean, I don't think Jonathan Taylor even knows how good he is, but watching him run the ball, and I know as a defender, he would not be a guy that I would want to see in open space or between the tackles, honestly. So this defense going up against Derek Carr, combined with this offense and them running the ball against this Raiders run defense, I really, really, really like my Colts today to get a win and win with some attitude going into January.
Well, they're favored by more than a touchdown. They're favored by 8, and I think for good reason. A lot of people have a lot of confidence in them. What do you got, Sam? What do you think about this game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Wentz has been the story all week, whether he's going to play or not. It looks like he is. The issue, though, is that if Wentz is playing and Jonathan Taylor's running and the Colts are going to put up some points, are the Raiders, because that's been their biggest problem, as Ian was saying, since Henry Ruggs went down or was kicked from the team, but also since Darren Waller went down, and all of a sudden there's just nobody left, right? It's Derek Carr trying to make big plays with Hunter Renfrow and with Zay Jones and with Foster Moreau. It's like, all right, you're capable of dropping a dime.
I still don't like your tone there talking about Hunter Renfrow, but I'll let it slide.
The biggest issue with the Raiders is they think that Josh Jacobs is Josh Jacobs. right? Like he's like,
You're gonna have to elaborate there. So do I, actually.
Who is he, Eric?
Right.
like Josh Jacobs.
He's
is
actually.
Josh Jacobs
Mask
is
comes off.
Oh no, like a Scooby-Doo villain.
But like Josh Jacobs as a rookie was a wonderful player. Like I watch him now and like he has less juice than Peyton Barber. I know Buck's great, but like
Thank you.
But I watch him and I'm like every single time like a kitten dies every time Josh Jacobs gets the ball on early downs. And like yeah, Derek Carr's having like a pretty good year for Derek Carr, but like he's facing so like when you come up for air and look at offense and say, wow, the stats look pretty good on Derek Carr. Why isn't this offense doing anything? Well, it's like because the guy's in 2nd and 8 all the time. The guy's in 3rd and 9 all the time. And like unfortunately, I think that the Raiders want that to be their identity. He's literally the one draft pick they've had in the last decade that's actually been a good player for a period of time. And so they want to like milk that, but he's not. Right. He's not an effective player for them anymore, and he's costing them early down success.
Yeah, I think their issue is that offensive line is horrendous. It's 4 terrible blockers and Colton Miller, right?
Yeah.
And they don't know how to hide an offensive line. So they're like, if we drop back 50 times in a game with Derek Carr will get killed. It'll be a disaster. We're done. So let's run the ball instead. You're like, yeah, but like the run game isn't going to work behind that offensive line either. So all you're doing is hurting Derek Carr in 3rd down by running into a brick wall in 1st down. But that's the issue, is that offensive line can't block anybody in either the run game or the pass game, so they have no offense.
I'm really excited to watch this Colts team down the stretch here because, Darius, I definitely want to get your take on this. Frank Reich would be right up there for Coach of the Year. I think I would have him right behind Matt LaFleur, and he has had to deal with so much stuff, I feel like, this season, whether it's been guys in the COVID list or injuries or whatever. Now we are really finally getting to see
Hard knocks.
a full. That's true. Oh, that's true too.
In season.
We now finally get to see this Colts team hopefully fully healthy for an extended period of time, and I'm really, really excited to see what Frank Reich gets to do with this group now as we get closer to January. Darius, my question to you is, what have you thought about the job that Frank Reich has done, and is it Coach of the Year worthy to you, at least being in that conversation?
It's definitely Coach of the Year worthy. I'll start there. But he's done a tremendous job. And early on in the season, a lot of people were coming at him, for their especially goal-to-goal lack of success and some of the play calls that weren't made. And, they came out with a rough start to the season. But I think down the stretch, the thing about Frank is and you can see it with the Hard Knocks, with the cameras, which is also an extra distraction during the season. But he just always calm. He's calm, he's steady, and he leads that team. And that team always has confidence down the stretch. He's aggressive when he needs to be. And he always most of the time puts them in great positions. But in that same division, Vrabel, like I said, after losing Derrick Henry, you lost, Julio's been in and out of the lineup all year. You lost A.J. Brown for a stretch. You lost a ton of guys, honestly, on both sides of the ball. And I think Vrabel has kind of kept that ship steady as well. And they're top 2 in the AFC, which is wild to even think. So I think Vrabel will be in that conversation. I'm a little hesitant with the Matt LaFleur stuff just because, you inherited one of the greatest quarterbacks that we've seen play this game. So, and it put up 7 points the game you missed them. So I'm a little hesitant with the Matt LaFleur stuff, but coming out of the gate, he's had great records. But I wouldn't be mad at all if Frank Reich actually won this award. But it's a toss-up between probably those 3.
Packers had
Belichick. I may throw Belichick.
Packers had 2 straight losing seasons in McCarthy's last 2 years. So, there was some sort of turnaround under LaFleur. But you're right. It's hard to attribute all of that. Another one, a guy who I think will win the award, but also it's probably a quarterback award, is Zach Taylor, right? So if the Bengals win today, they win their first AFC North title since
if they win today,
2015.
That Coach of the Year conversation for Taylor.
Yeah, if they win one of their next 2 games, they win the AFC North for the first time since 2015. When you look at this, you also have to look at season win totals. So Frank Reich, for example, the Colts win total was 9, 10, depending upon when you got it. So that's why people who say you had the great rant about Andy Reid, the Chiefs win total this year going in was 12.5. They have to still win out to go over that win total by half a game. So this award is mostly about expectations and exceeding them. And I don't think that there's been a team that's exceeded expectations on paper more than the Bengals. Now the question becomes because I think with the Colts it's very clear to look and say Frank Reich's the guy kind of doing all the stuff, right? But with the Bengals, it's I think Joe Burrow is the guy doing all the stuff, right. And maybe Zach Taylor will get the credit for it, but his name's also going to be in there, I think.
Do you know off the top of your head what coach or team has the highest record against the spread?
I believe.
Cowboys.
I believe it's. Well, no, it is. It's the Cowboys or Packers. Packers are 0-2 the last two, but they're, I believe, 11-4 ATS.
Oh, wow.
But they're 0-2 in the last two. I think Cowboys are similar to that. The thing with McCarthy's Cowboys is, they're 2 games above expectation, which is pretty good. Right. I think a lot of people, though, believe McCarthy's kind of a boob that's being like sort of elevated by Dak Prescott and Kellen Moore. I am not of that ilk. I think McCarthy got a. I think McCarthy's
not a boob.
No, I don't think so. I think McCarthy's time in Green Bay was very similar to Andy Reid's at the end of Philadelphia, where it just needed a divorce.
Yeah.
And both parties were better off for it. But he's also in the conversation. I don't think people are going to vote for him. I don't think McCarthy's popular. That's the interesting thing.
All right, speaking of things. Go ahead, Darius. I'll let you comment on it.
No, I was just thinking Dan Quinn. I know you mentioned Kellen Moore and McCarthy, but Dan Quinn, obviously with him hiring Mike Nolan last year, that was a shit show from the beginning. But you brought Dan Quinn in there, and he's looking like he'll be in line for another, head coaching gig in the next couple of years. What he's done with that defense, obviously you have the players, but putting them in a position, letting them just play, fast. The production you get from Curse, from all the pass rushers, from obviously Trevon Diggs, from Hooker, like just players all over the board. He's done a tremendous job from the beginning of the season to now.
You knew that Dan Quinn was going to get another head coach opportunity at some point, because you look at how things ended with the Falcons, and they had like back-to-back just like disappointing seasons, and yet they kept Dan Quinn around. And there's a reason why, because they probably loved the dude, because he was great behind the scenes and they still wanted to believe in him. That definitely made me feel like, okay, if he goes to a bounce back spot, he'll get another head coach spot. But you guys talked about against the spread. Speaking of against the spread, Darius, let's get your dog of the day. Who you got as the dog of the day, dog of this week when it comes to week 17 of the NFL season?
This was actually the week I could not find a dog that I liked.
Wow.
I couldn't find one. I literally, I think I said there 3 or 4 favorites, but all up and down, it just got worse and worse. I came into the week when it was 5.5 for Cincinnati. Thinking, that's a little much, but went down to 4, stayed with the Chiefs. If there's one team that I could see surprise covering today, it would be the Falcons against the Buffalo Bills. I think that spread is up to 14.5. So if I had to pick one, I think that's the only one that I still have in my book. I go with the Atlanta Falcons covering against the Falcons, Buffalo Bills.
We talked about the Falcons with Dan Quinn. That Dan Quinn team started out like 1-4 2 straight years and finished 7-9. Like they fought hard for him, to your point, on being a future head coach. Falcons last year were 4-12. Their point differential was like -22 or something. This year it's like -122.
Crazy.
And they're 7-8.
It's crazy.
And 1 win away from going over their season win total. There are a couple ones that because I think these are the games Darius doesn't want to touch, and they're not in our preview, but like stinky ass dogs. One of them is going to be the Giants getting points against the Bears. The Bears should be laying points against nobody, not even the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and the Carolina Panthers getting about a touchdown to Taysom Hill and the New Orleans Saints. I know the Saints have a great defense. But are the Saints going to score? The Panthers' defense is not that bad. Sam Darnold can lean into a good game or two, I think. I think those are 2 games where you're like 2 kind of bad teams laying a touchdown.
Stinky dogs.
Stinky. You don't want to watch
Stinky dogs.
You don't want to watch these games, but you do maybe want to bet them.
These spreads are tough this week.
What about a best bet? Do we have a best bet from you this week, Darius? You got anything you're super in on?
The Colts were in there. I like the Cowboys against the Cardinals. Cardinals, and it'll be crazy to think that they'll lose 4 in a row. But the Cardinals, especially this O-line, they haven't been able to block guys up front. And I keep talking about this Dallas Cowboys pass rush. So I think they'll struggle. And Kyler actually lose his first game in AT&T Stadium down there in Dallas. So I like them. What was the other one I got? Colts, Raiders, and then the Rams. Rams over the Ravens. That beat up secondary, that beat up defense. Offensively, I think they'll kind of stay course and make it competitive. But I don't think that defense, they just gave up 500 plus last week to Burrow. You're coming in with another great play caller with Sean McVay. Another pretty good quarterback if he can take care of the damn ball with Matt Stafford. But I think they'll be efficient and they'll get it done and they'll win by a touchdown today over the Ravens.
Man, tough second half of the season here for the Ravens. It looked so good early on and it's just been so tough for them second half. All right, any final thoughts before we get out of here? Guys on the desk, anything? Fantasy playoffs, fantasy championships?
We talked briefly about Falcons, Bills. Stephon Diggs had an interesting thing to say. Called Cordero Patterson generational.
Oh!
That's all I got.
Okay, all right. That's a
game respects game, I feel like.
That's
Sent him a bunch of wings last night,
saw
too,
that.
trying to slow him down. I got to watch it.
Or he's looking ahead to 2022. Bills could use a few more playmakers.
Oh, that's very true. That's very true. You know, just saying some nice things. You never know what could
That's
happen.
what the Bills need, another wide receiver. Jeez.
No, he's whatever.
That should be a good matchup, though, if Terrell is matched up with Diggs all day. That'd be a fun one to watch.
I just love we're starting the year off right. You know, Eric in there watching Darnold versus Taysom Hill sweating out the bets.
Yeah, there it is.
Beautiful.
Yuck.
Only elite QB matchups in front of Eric's TV. That's all we got there. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching the show. For Darius Butler, for Ian Hartitz, Eric Eager, Sam Monson, I am Trevor Sikkema. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you this time next week to preview the final week of the regular season. Enjoy this week, guys. We'll see you then.